Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out 2-sentence horror. Story 1. You've got a really nasty cut, she said, leaning over my crumpled body. Her mad eyes bore into mine as she slid the blade through my flesh once more. Story 2. As the wife of a mortician, I wasn't surprised any time my husband would stay back at work to have a drink after the things he would see. But when I sat in the courtroom with my husband across from me, listening to all his messages being read out to all that could hear, I finally realized what he meant when he told me he was cracking a cold one. Story 3. I've always wondered what heaven was like, and so I've performed a spirit travel ritual to take a glance at the fabled afterlife refuge for the righteous. The heaven's gate opened, and what greeted me was not an angel, but a skeleton. Story 4. Every night the child would cry because of the violent monster in the house. Story 5. The genie said that I couldn't die except by my own hands. When that bird shot tore through the roof of my mouth and painted my brains on the ceiling, my suffering didn't end like I had hoped. Story 6. I finally reached the summit despite the sudden blizzard hampering my progress, and what awaited me was a towering figure whose mere presence caused me to cower in fear. Its curved beak gleamed as brightly as its eyes upon a hideous visage as it stalked towards me on spindly legs, and in that moment I knew the mountain would be my grave. Story 7. I'm so sorry, I sobbed, hastily gathering my clothes while he lay there naked, his face a mixture of confusion and alarm. I feel terrible, but now the curse and that thing are his problem. Story 8. I woke up in Denny's, unable to move. My B*LLs were taped to the bathroom floor. Story 9. Dear Sir or Madam, we are well aware that you may never heard about our organization before, yet we find it utmost important to provide you with the following information. The Hunters Guild have chosen you as the next prey. Story 10. She clutched a golden knife, whispering there is no death, and gazed at her children, blissfully sleeping. Story 11. A suitor once told me he loved my eyes. The liar changed his tune when I placed them in his hand. Story 12. 3-year-old Jake woke up and slowly walked out of the open front door of the house, leaving behind bloody footprints. 5 hours later, there was a massive search for the missing kid, whose whole family was slaughtered in the living room. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 13. I started to cry when the anonymous tipper donated $500 to my live stream. I no longer had to count on sweepstakes to stay alive. Story 14. After a lot of prodding, my wife finally convinced me to ride the slingshot. It was one of the weirdest options in the new death penalty law, but it sure beats being fed to alligators. Story 15. I was embarrassed when everyone started staring at me, so I left the restaurant. On the drive home, all the passerbys turned and stared, and when I got home and turned on the game, the entire stadium went dead silent and stared into the camera. Story 16. I had always been proud that I'd raised my son to never interrupt adult conversations. When he stood silently, waiting for his father and uncle to finish discussing the football game as I stroked out, I started to wish I hadn't been quite as heavy-handed. Story 17. A mother's love is meant to be unconditional and come before all else, no matter what. Thus, I had no qualms about my decision when the witch told me that the only thing that can be exchanged for a life is another life. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 18. DEC-23. The monster at the entrance of the cave has killed again, so we will be doubling the guard, the leader of our colony announced. I just couldn't let my brother's death go, but when I snuck past the guards, all I found at the end of the cave's tunnel entrance was an enormous metal door. Story 19. Come on, our business was supposed to stay between the two of us. Please, my wife and kids didn't do anything wrong. Story 20. I want to be where the people are, the mermaid sang sweetly. As her voice rang out, all families on the beach began to panic as their children walked without thought or hesitation into the sea. Story 21. I thought I was prepared for how difficult I would find it when they exhumed my baby's tiny body. I never could have expected the grown adult skeleton still partially wrapped in his tiny baby blanket. Story 22. We asked Aunt Judy why she didn't bring her famous cranberry sauce to Thanksgiving dinner this year. I hit menopause, she said. Story 23. My reflection blinked. Story 24. My sleepwalking has always been a bother to me and everyone in my house. One day when I woke up covered in blood that wasn't mine, it was clear it became much more than just a bother. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 25. I have a lot of intrusive thoughts. I only recently realized that they're not in my voice. Story 26. I asked God, does Satan truly exist? God replied, you're looking at him. Story 27. I felt a deep sense of despair as the black cloud engulfed me. The tiny, needle-like critters swiftly made their new homes in the pores of my skin. Story 28. My coworker stood there like a statue. As a prank I decided to push him, not noticing the electric wires he was holding. Story 29. I was born with a gift that allowed me to see a countdown on top of everyone's head that counted down to their death. When I went out to walk I was horrified when I realized everyone I saw had the same countdown. Story 30. I had been lost for sea for days. I was nearly out of fresh water. I'm so grateful I heard her singing, I'll be safe now. Story 31. I stabbed the fire. Story 32. The police wouldn't believe me when I told them, I saw Mommy kissing Santa Claus last night, not my dad, as they drove off with him in their police car. I hope Mommy wakes up from her nap in that sleeping bag they put her in. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 33. It was difficult seeing our little girl hooked up to all those tubes, and I was grateful for my wife's reassurance, at least she's ingesting something for the first time in days. I wish the restraints weren't necessary, but we will not be one of those embarrassing families that has a daughter with anorexia. Story 34. Being claustrophobic, I always thought that being buried alive was the worst thing that could happen to me. But gaining consciousness on a mortician's table, my eyes glued shut and my mouth sewn permanently closed, as I felt their needles plunge into me, made me realize just how wrong I was. Story 35. I was convinced that alien parasites have eaten my organs, blood and bones, but the emergency room doctor showed me x-rays that proved I was delusional. Despairing that I've lost my mind, I plunge a knife into my stomach, only to discover with horrifying jubilation that I am right, my body is completely hollow, and it deflates like a spent balloon. Story 36. I was finally forced to get glasses. Does everyone who wears them see the shadow people in their periphery? Story 37. They always say to look both ways before crossing the street. You never know what might be out there at night. Story 38. Day 12 of exploration. The previous civilization who lived on this planet lived long enough to invent robotics. I found around 5 so far. Day 13 of exploration. I hear giggling right behind the door. Why wasn't I given self-defense? Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 39. My husband cheated on me with his online girlfriend and flew to a small island country to visit her. 10 years later, as I happen upon the island in a cruise ship, I hear a delicious, intoxicating female voice, and start to realize why my husband never came back. Story 40. When my son was 4 he asked me, why is daddy so mean? And now he sits on death row, those words being the last he ever spoke. Story 41. I fought mercilessly with the veteran temple raider deep in the Amazon jungle while the crystal skull kept the giant ants at bay until I got knocked flat on my back. Story 42. DEC 23 double the guards, we have a breach. We spared their lives, gave them food and water, why won't those humans stay in reservation? Story 43. I was getting nervous because the line at the dump was longer than I expected. I could hear her moaning through the rolled-up carpet. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 44. The actor was just supposed to trash things around in a silly costume. But after what seemed like days, only the costume was left and flesh started peeling off. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 45. Parents are always so quick to check their children's candy. Good thing they never check their own. Story 46. Mom wouldn't stop being loud at dinner. Tonight she won't be so loud. Story 47. Every night when the thunder came, my daughter climbed into our bed so my wife could sing her to sleep. We would have stopped her, but we were afraid she would use the thunder on us as well. Story 48. As a result of the crash, the remaining oxygen is only enough for 2 days. Or 4 days if I used this knife properly. Story 49. Whenever I look at people, I hear their thoughts. It's usually a rabble of constant nonsense, but a small glance at my friend left me horrified to hear nothing. Story 50. As I'm flying my F4 in the sky, I get a call. As I turn to my left, I hear over the phone, "You really should get going." Story 51. She felt the soft gentle kiss upon her forehead as she lay there in bed. She quickly sat up, eyes wide, surveying the dark and empty room. Story 52. New Orleans Crypt Keeper, the Killer, the Creeper. Believe me that demons are real once you see us. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 53. My mommy thinks I'm a sponge. That's why she held my head underwater in the bathtub. Story 54. I took my toddler to preschool today. But when I entered the building, there were no children. Just middle-aged men in baby attire. Story 55. Man, I'm so hungry right now, I heard my friend say. When I looked down, I was a horse. Story 56. Last night I heard someone play violin in my room and I heard a soft sinister whisper thanking me for listening. I like it a lot and decided to copy it for myself. I named the tune as Devil's Trill Sonata. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.